Hello and welcome back to Soul Talk Season 2, Embracing Holistic Wellbeing in the Digital Age. I am today here thrilled again for an insightful conversation, and we have a very nice episode in store for you. Today our focus shifts towards destigmatizing sex and its profound impact on mental health. In a world where this particular conversation about sex is a taboo, we often still do not talk about it. Understanding its connection to our mental well-being is definitely crucial. This is the episode where you will see how sex is also a crucial part in ensuring you have a better mental health. So joining us today for this enlightening conversation is someone who brings a wealth of expertise and compassion to the table. She's a licensed sex and trauma therapist who practices psychotherapy from an art-based, spiritually focused and creative wellness perspective in both India and the US. She has not only worked in sexual assault trauma care at institutions such as University of Michigan, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Rush Medical Center, and the Tata Institute of Social Science. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Neha Bhat in conversation with me, your host, Navita Berry, Business Head of Solh Wellness today. Thank you. Welcome to Soul Talk Season 2, Neha. Thank you so much for coming and gracing our audience today with your presence. So, Neha, tell us, your book, Unashamed, tackles complex topics like sex, relationships, and trauma. And in today's digital age, where information is overload, and how can people navigate trustworthy resources for their well-being? If I will say, you are also a sex therapist, and so when you wrote this book, what was the objective of writing this book and making people aware about things? Because there is so much of taboo related to sex nowadays, especially in India.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Solh Wellness, as well as Navita. Thanks for so much for having me, and thank you for gracing me with your presence. I hope our audiences enjoy this conversation. This is going to be quite diverse. The book is also very diverse. So, I've been in practice for 15 years, and I had started off as an artist. Then I went into theater. Then I went into trauma work. Then into teaching. Then into therapy. And ऐसे करके ऐसे आगे बढ़ता रहा. तो मेरी करियर जर्नी ही ऐसे एक आर्क में हुई है, जैसे कि आई जस्ट kept getting messages एक फील्ड के बाद दूसरे फील्ड कि ये नेक्स्ट है. सो आई केप्ट सीइंग इन द इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट कि हमें बेसिकली हमारा इतना ओरिएंटेशन चला गया है अपने आप से, राइट? इट हैज बिकम अबाउट मनी, हाउस, चिल्ड्रन, एजुकेशन, मैरिज, डेथ. Just to be very blunt about it, it's a very linear line.
Yeah.
And our generation and then the generation under us is really questioning this. But overall, it has been very suffocating for many people to just see their life like this. So I saw that in this field of trauma, when I was an artist, actually, children had started telling me a lot of their own problems, like sexual abuse, domestic violence, watching their parents hit each other, very triggering things like this. And I was kind of like, oh my God, I know this, but I don't know how to hold it. Then I was like, if an educated person like me doesn't know how to hold it, educated means I'm already in inner work, I was already in psychology, even I don't know how to hold it. So matlab, how is an average person going to understand any of this anyway? So aise karte I kept on moving into starting my own clinics, doing my own work, and then realizing ki acha, this is very deep. Like what I'm thinking is very deep. Something even 101 has not been happened for our culture.
Yeah.
It's not our fault. Of course, we've been a broken country. We've had so much British colonization. There's been so many problems in us. So our self-esteem is just coming up, right? So in this phase, I thought 2020 ke baad, when I started seeing that everybody is now looking at mental health and inner work and all this, wanting to. That's when I was like, let me just water it down without diluting it, of course, but let me just make it accessible कि किसी के पास therapist नहीं है या किसी को पता भी नहीं कि वो therapist की क्या जरूरत है, वो कैसे access करेगा इस topic को. So that is the premise of the entire book.
Yeah, because if you see today in the world of social media, you will find very few people like you who are actually trying to make people aware. But still, there is a lot of taboo and there is no education, specifically in school. I feel like specifically in school, the sex education is very, very important. So that taboo, that touch and untouch and bad touch and good touch and everything should be very clear with the children. Nowadays it's just like okay, there are so many things. Netflix is there, OTTs are there, and then there is YouTube and so many other things. I've seen a lot of people watching animations on YouTube
बिल्कुल
without realizing that they are porn.
बिल्कुल एंड पॉन खुल चुका है, सो टेक्नोलॉजी खुल
हाँ,
चुकी है, अब टेक्नोलॉजी फीमेल के हाथ में है, मेल के हाथ में है,
yes,
ट्रांसजेंडर पर्सन के हाथ में है,
yes,
तो सबको सब कुछ पता है, एक्सेस है, लेकिन देयर
access,
इज नो वे टू कंटेन इट कि अच्छा
right,
अब मैं इस इंफॉर्मेशन का क्या करूं. सो आपने एक सेक्स एजुकेशन की बात बोली विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, लेकिन उसमें ट्रॉमा पीस इज सो बिग, राइट? लाइक when at 3 only my mother said don't do this, don't do that.
right.
At 16 she's saying don't touch my vulva in this way, she's saying ye gandi baat hoti
गंदी
hai.
बात होती है, don't even use the word we.
We, and for men
हाँ,
it's even worse because it's, I mean, of course I have a lot of empathy for women, and I mean I'm a woman myself, but for men it's so much worse because there's no place to even release that kind of feeling, right? Other
right,
than sex and aggression. So this trauma piece not many people are talking about because you know it requires training and all that, but the sex ed piece thoda to khul gaya hai, which I'm very happy, but this bridge building nahi ho raha hai, so this is again
हाँ,
why
agree.
unashamed came in.
Actually, the concept of shame, which is surrounding sexuality in India, we have seen a lot of conversations are getting open offline and online, but like your book is also talking about this concept of shame. How do you think you as an influencer also are focusing on this concept more and are educating people more, or your book is educating this more?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I don't see my work as sex ed actually. I see my work very much in mental health and trauma space. So I approach it only from a very different lens. If you see, for many years, even when I started writing and I didn't know it's going to get popular or viral, I was just writing because मेरे खुद के friends को नहीं पता था कि मैं करती क्या हूँ. Because I used to always say कि मैं court में हूँ and अभी मैं इस perpetrator के साथ हूँ, मैं Delhi High Court में I'm fighting this case for some with somebody. And they used to be like, why are you in court? Like, are you a lawyer? And I mean, my very good friends were like, आपको ये कहाँ से हो गया type of thing. And I was like, no, no, no. When you do sexual violence advocacy, incest cases, you know, rape
You have
cases,
to
all
get
this,
involved.
you are part of the person's world. You are part of the person's world. And then sex doesn't become only about what happened behind closed doors.
Right.
It's when what happened when that girl or boy or that person told the teacher, how that teacher didn't blame, how that teacher gaslit the child and said ki aisi koi badi baat nahi, forget about it. Then she goes home mein mama and papa are also saying just shut up, just keep quiet, just keep quiet. Then she goes to therapist is also saying I don't know, I'm not really trained to deal with this thing, so it's okay, let's just deal, you know. So it goes on becoming lesser and lesser, and then she's 35 years old and she's married and she cannot have sex, and she has not made that connection between what happened at 16 and what happens at 35, right? So this linkage I've been writing about for at least 7 years, and then when Instagram became popular, at least for 3 years, and I saw that people were of course taking very well to it, but people were also just like very offended, like अच्छा
Yeah,
ऐसे थोड़ी ना होता है, इतना डीप नहीं
right.
होता है, ऐसे इतना नहीं सोचना चाहिए टाइप ऑफ थिंग. So I've been, I'll just complete this answer by saying I've been approaching it from a very different lens, which is why I talk about everything. I talk about religion, politics, shame, sex, policy, law, not very much like how to have sex, which sex toy to use. उसके लिए बहुत सारे अलग लोग हैं जो मेरे से बहुत अच्छा
Hmm.
काम कर रहे हैं, and वो कर भी रहे हैं, like that is their expertise. That's great.
Right.
This is not what my approach is at all.
As an individual, I myself have been going through a lot of, when I go through a lot of social media pages and all, and when I speak to a lot of students or a lot of people, when we are doing workshops and all,
Yeah,
there is this stigma which I feel that okay, um, the term one is G
yeah,
spot and
yeah,
another one is orgasm.
yeah,
So according to people, it's like okay, the man has come, so the
yeah,
girl is also automatically she also needs to come. So the orgasm terminology has been, it's like so huge. It's a pressure. It's a mental health pressure on girls. And what ends up, I have seen and I have heard from different stories. What happens is, in the end, the girls also says, "Okay, I also came." So
yeah.
they're lying, and there is so much of mental health pressure on them. They're like, my boyfriend will say no, I don't want to have sex with you then.
Mhm.
So how do you feel how we can come up with this stigma and then this terminology of, oh, there will be a trauma and then my boyfriend will leave me or my husband will leave me if I'll not say I also came, and what will they think about me? So there is a lot of shaming around regarding this orgasm in the spot.
This is where I think Gen Z is winning. I think this is the one positive thing about Gen Z, although I have a lot of problems with them. But this is one very positive thing about Gen Z is that they are exposed to relationship red flags, green flags so young. मतलब
Yeah.
11th में 10th में वो Instagram में बैठ के देखते रहते हैं, which is actually really good, right? Because now CBSE, of course, it's not the CBSE board, but somebody in one school, that Delhi school, that tweet that went viral, that book on relationships in class 9.
Yeah.
I think that is the way to approach it rather than explicit sex ed. Because in India, explicit sex ed will always get a little bit of pushback, like, why are we
Right.
doing it like this? But relationships are a great way to start this, right? So, मेरे biology class में जब मैं 6th class की थी, क्या था? It was just like some सड़ा हुआ uterus का picture and some penis
हाँ.
का picture. And we didn't even understand, like, where, what goes where. You have no idea, right? And उसमें लड़कियां हंस रही है लड़के हंस रहे हैं and I grew up in Hyderabad, so I mean there was a division, like girls sitting separately, guys sitting separately. So that actually, and I was a very premature kid, so I knew everything. I was watching porn and you know, in a way, like for education, like I was like, oh, this is how it is, this is how it is, this is lesbianism, this is gay, and I was like very unashamed about it. So I was doing the education for my own friends, right, in class. And what do I know? It's not like in class 6 I had sex. Like, I have no idea. This is just theoretical. So I feel if it is approached like that, like from a relational point of view, then that question becomes very easy to answer, to say, if my boyfriend is saying that he's going to abandon me, that because he's feeling unfulfilled, then that's actually a very big red flag. Then you can actually make sense ki, acha, what is a healthy relationship? What's a good boyfriend? Okay, a good boyfriend is, if I'm feeling unsatisfied, a good boyfriend comes to the girlfriend and says, what's the problem? You want to figure this out? Am I not making you happy? Or is there something that you want to tell me that you have not told? This is a totally different way of looking at relationships, right? And there are many Indian people who have such very good, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
इट्स जस्ट दैट उनको हम सेंटर में नहीं डालते, उनकी रिलेशनशिप को मॉडल नहीं करते.
हम लोग हमेशा नेगेटिव स्टोरीज की तरफ ज्यादा भागते हैं.
हाँ, एंड ये फिर छुप जाता है उसमें. इंडियन फैमिलीज भी हम वही देखते, वो घटिया सी मदर जो इतनी मार पीट के यू नो बच्चे को डिस्ट्रॉय कर रही है, बट देयर इज एक्चुअली अ वेरी लवली विलेजेस में Indian families bhi to. So I feel that's the space we need to access. And the orgasm pressure that you talked about is same for men, very similar for men. Like if I'm not erect, she will leave me. So many men are not even able to say that, yeah, erection doesn't happen in 2 minutes. It takes time. Sometimes I'm not hard and I still love you, you know. But women take it so personally. We are conditioned to take it like, oh, what, he doesn't like me. My body must be fat. My body must be thin. I have small boobs. I have big boobs. It becomes about that.
Yes, it's more of body shaming and it's more of, oh my God, what will the other person think about? Instead of having that free communication between each other, people are so much engaged. If maybe I will come or not, or maybe he will come or not, or maybe it will be the correct timing or not. Instead of enjoying it, the pleasure, they just screw their timings.
But how will they enjoy the pleasure? Because there is no, your own system is so traumatized, right?
Yeah.
You're always thinking, who will leave me? How do I
Right.
get you? अब तुम मेरे हाथ में आ जाओगे तो फिर शादी कब करेंगे? It's all very pressurizing.
Right.
And that has to start from home, which is why parents need to get into this, like parent trauma education. Then grandparents need to get into trauma education. So part 4 of my book, I get into that, like what is intergenerational trauma and how to bridge the gaps. Just because my mother-in-law may be very difficult to talk to doesn't mean I need to cancel her.
Right.
Are there ways in which to bridge the gap?
But don't you feel like in Indian society, specifically in Indian families, these type of conversation hardly happen? The mother, in fact, will never have this type of conversation with the daughter, and for that matter, the mother-in-law. Or if we are talking about, like you said, that your another book is will be talking about these traumatized generational gaps and everything. Yes, there is a generation gap, but Don't you feel that in Indian families these conversations are hardly not happening? When there is a for example, on the TV ad, the entire family is sitting still. Now I see a lot of girls going away from the TV screen, from their living room, when a whisper ads come up. It's like a shame for them.
So that is one angle, and that is very true. And then there are other families, and there are other examples. There is another angle, jahan pe there are daughters now buying sex toys for their mom because the sex toys has opened up. There are friends gifting sex toys on the day of marriage and saying कि अच्छा तो बुरा तो नहीं लगेगा, but here is something I'm just giving it to you, have fun.
That's a Gen Z.
So dono, not necessarily Gen Z, people my age, people
Okay.
40 plus, people 45 plus. See, both things are happening simultaneously. एक तो trauma सबका बाहर आ रहा है and surface पे अब ऐसे nose पे है because if you can just see it. And secondly, cycle breakers are also there. And those cycle breakers are the ones who are accessing therapy, who are like coming out and speaking about it publicly, of course, writing things on it, gifting things on it. Both are happening simultaneously. I'm with you that the first part is much bigger. It's much bigger. It's much bigger. The second part is a minority, for sure. But because these things are already happening, right? There is this kind of move that even a village girl is saying that I want my husband to cook half the day, yaar. मतलब he has to take care of half the household tasks. मैं नहीं करने वाली घर पे काम, बाहर काम, फिर आके फिर उसे घर में घिसो. This is a major shift, right? So I wouldn't say, like, I always prevent people from saying all, like all Indian families, everyone. ऐसा नहीं है इसलिए मैंने लिखी भी है बुक जैसे कि एक्चुअली बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल्स हैं जहां पे लोग कर रहे हैं साइकिल ब्रेक. अब वो सेंटर में आने चाहिए ताकि people get more inspired by them. For sure.
Correct. I'll ask another question from your book only. So yeah, here's one. So Neha, your work bridges the gap between mental health and sexual well-being. So can you elaborate on how these aspects are interconnected in the digital age, where online interactions can significantly impact mental health? And if you have written some stories or shared some stories in your current book also, if you can share those with us.
Yeah, there is an example of a case study that I have done of an older man who's 60 years old who wants to come out as gay. And this is it's a true story, right? And I've just changed the identities. And these are my clients that I'm talking about. I've just changed their identities. I've changed their names so nobody can recognize them. And I have their consent. So 60-year-old man wants to come out as gay. And the mother, the wife, is his friend. She's actually supporting. She's saying it's fine, right? And they are kind of scared कि हम अपने बेटे को कैसे बोलें क्योंकि बेटे के स्कूल में there will be a huge halla bulla if I'm like this. So now the interesting thing is that the son is actually quite open because this is a positive aspect because of Gen Z and the positive thing of social media. He already knows that this is not abnormal. I don't have to go to shock therapy. I don't have to send my father to 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was abnormal. It was considered a mental illness to be gay, to be homosexual. So this is like a positive connection between mental health and sexual health from a digital lens. Okay, so and it goes there's an entire chapter on this which goes very deeply into that. If you see the negative aspect, this is more like dating apps making, especially let's say urban women, very lonely. Very lonely. Urban loneliness is at a peak, and in India it's ये तो बढ़ने ही वाला है. मतलब ये तो 15 साल में तो बढ़ने वाला है.
Urban women, in fact the urban men also.
For sure.
And some of them in the relationships, they are in a relationships, well married, have kids, but both of them are lonely.
Both of them are so lonely. Exactly, because now you have your job, you have both are working, you have children doing their own thing, you come home and you are without a joint family, without, some ways it's great that you don't have that kind of pressure, but it's also very broken because now we don't have any way to come together.
Right.
Any community spaces, everything has become privatized. Everything is about me and my gate, my pool, my land, so this when you start to date in this kind of atmosphere, it's very scary actually for a lot of people to be like, do I have to really meet 500 dates to even go to the next stage with somebody? There are some people like that, and then there are some other people who are very easy. They easily have sex. Their body is less rigid about it. They're open to it, but it's not like they're enjoying it. They're like, how many people should I meet? to
Yeah.
actually meet my match. And sex, casual sex after some time doesn't feel good, you know?
Right.
So there's this kind of very interesting point where apps are actually creating this kind of pressure, artificial pressure, a lot of loneliness. They want to connect us, but here we are disconnected. So I do something on my page, you know, every year. I open up my page to like a post me. I will say, anyone who follows me, please also talk to each other. It's a dating meetup kind
Okay.
of thing. So I get 1,000, 2,000 comments. एक तो किसी की शादी भी हो गई उसमें कि अच्छा दोनों इंडियन सेक्स थेरेपिस्ट को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, तो थोड़े लाइक सिमिलर माइंड के
सिमिलर, हाँ,
होंगे,
थॉट है.
जाके मिल गए फिर शादी हो गई. सो ऐसे
वाओ.
करके people are looking for common values these days, which is a little difficult to find on apps. So this affects sex life. And I'll just end with this answer with this, that in America, the latest research is saying that this is the only generation in the history of the world, teenage girls
Okay.
specifically, who are having the least amount of sex, who are the most depressed, who have not even explored themselves because they got phones at 11. So they don't even go for sleepovers. आपको याद है हमारे बचपन में तो
हाँ,
हम तो जाते थे,
रेगुलर होता था.
रेगुलर
रेगुलर.
होता था. Now they don't talk on the phone. They don't go for sleepovers. It's just texting.
They are addicted on social.
So this is depression,
Is
right?
very
It's
high.
a culture of depression.
So, Neha, if this is for our subscribers and audience, so shame surrounding around sex is a common theme in your work. And for viewers who might be struggling with this, can you offer some words of encouragement and highlight the importance of self-compassion on the road to self-discovery?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, I can. So let's first think about shame as a very complex emotion. It's not like jealousy, it's not like disgust, it's not like joy, it's not like sadness. It's a combination emotion. So, and for your shame will be very different from my shame, depending on what my parents told me, depending on what my culture tells me at home. Even two Punjabis have a different, even two Kannadigas have different. So
Right.
this is where the trauma piece is on mental health piece is so important, right? So sometimes when people start healing their shame, they become, or like telling themselves, "Ki, I should be little more fluid. I should be able to date easily. I should go to a doctor and get my vulva checked because maybe I have vaginismus. Maybe I have a biological condition that's causing me to not be able to enjoy my sexual life." They become, we become very hard on ourselves. Ki sex positivity matlab I have to be extremely liberated, I have to love my curves, and I have to have like sex with 100 people today, or I have to have sex with my husband today, or husband says I have to love my wife today. So this is another form of shaming. Okay, and this is not very self compassionate. And digital media can make it look like you have to get your healing like right now after listening to one podcast or reading one book. So self compassion is much more gentle, and it teaches us, which is again my entire book, but part 4 about healing, is to give readers tips and exercises. There are 16 exercises in the book, but actually step by step exercises to take this journey at your pace. तो मैं आपको नहीं बोल सकती कि आप जल्दी करो आप इतने
Hmm.
आप इतने shameful क्यों हो अभी भी.
Correct.
And then you learn that the more easy you become, not easy, the more gentle you become on yourself, the longer your results last. So this is very different from a weight loss coach, for example, that we see, right? Come on, go for it, go for it. This is very different from that. If you do that to yourself, you're going to just push all the trauma forward. It's not very paced. So self compassion is that. It's an exercise in learning कि मेरी पेस क्या है, मैं खुद एडवोकेसी करूं उसकी, और मैं अपने फ्रेंड्स को बोलूं या अपने लवर्स को बोलूं या अपने इन लॉज को बोलूं या अपने हस्बैंड को बोलूं या पार्टनर को बोलूं that I need this time to do this. I will go get my vulva checked, etc., etc. You also do something on your end. Then let's come back to the table and let's see if we can move forward. So sometimes, and I'll just end this by saying, sometimes we'll come with so much anxiety, right? Like, should I divorce today?
Yeah.
Should I stop today? This is not self compassionate at all.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, Neha, thank you so much for enlightening us and actually making our audience aware about sex and a lot of things in your book. I hope everybody is able to get something from this episode today. So, thank you for coming on Soul Talk Season 2. And it's our pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.